guys, we've had the Canadian Grand Prix, and what a race we got. We got the two guys that have been throwing digs at each other, Max Verstappen, George Russell, right up at the front. And then we got finally the racing between the two McLarens, and it didn't end well for one of them. And we've got a new man on the podium. It was a brilliant race. Bit of a slow burner. Let's jump straight in to the start, as always. George Russell got a really good start. Max Verstappen, not so great. Wasn't really in a position to fight George Russell at that point. Oscar Piastri got a pretty decent start, but Antonelli was the best of the starters of the front four. And then with a really brave move, really put it on Oscar, said, look, your championship's at risk, mine isn't. And what a great move for him to get up into P3 at that time. And that was really the part that sort of set him up for that podium finish in the end. Nico Hülkenberg, another one with a great start, made up 2 places into P9, and that really kick-started his race from there. Hadjar made up 1 place to P11. He did get that 3-place grid penalty for the impeding in qualifying, so he started P12 in the end. Also, just on the starts, actually, Gasly and Lawson did start from the pit lane. They did get new power units in for them. It was a bad start, though, for Alex Albon. Dropped 3 places down into P12, and his race just got horrible from there. Another power unit issue very, very early on, and then he had to sort of DNF from there onwards. But back to the front, it looked pretty steady-headed, didn't it? Lando Norris was making up a couple of moves. He started on the hard, as did Charles Leclerc, and it was the guys all ahead of him, all on the mediums, then to Norris and Leclerc on the hards. And it was interesting to see how that early strategy would work out for the pair of them. Lando Norris made a good pass on Fernando Alonso. And then lap 12, it was suddenly looking like the Mercedes were going to run away with it. Kimi Antonelli with a really good race up to lap 12. Made a move on Verstappen. Verstappen went straight into the pit stop at that time, and that was the start of what turned out to be a really good strategy call from the Red Bull guys for Max Verstappen. We've seen that last time out with that 3-stop nearly working well for them in Barcelona, and this time out it really worked well for Max Verstappen to keep his second place, because even when Max went to the hards on the second stops, Kimi Antonelli was all over him again, got into the DRS, and Max went for the pits, kept the undercut position, and had he not done that, I think Mercedes probably would have gone to pit Kimi Antonelli first, got that undercut, and would have got the move on Max Verstappen. Should they have done that 1 lap early before he came into that sort of combat zone? Did Mercedes miss a little bit of a trick on that one there? Most probably, because Max Verstappen's position did look up, and Mercedes 1-2 really did look on the card, which is crazy to say. Up behind, though, it was so close. I mean, it was lap 20-25. I mean, there was less than half a second between each of the cars from sort of P13, P to P19. It was just a train of DRSs, which eventually sort of paid to the traffic when the leaders came to pass them all at lap 58, and that sort of helped massively Lando Norris with his strategy, because he went very long on the hards, as did Leclerc. They came out another set of hards. I mean, there was only a couple of laps deficit between Norris and Oscar Piastri, so we didn't have a massive strategy deficit to Piastri when it all paid out in the end. And then we got the traffic that played its part, and then they really didn't help George Russell, because Max Verstappen really did close on him, and Max Verstappen had pace. Surprisingly, in the end, he had to do 32 laps in his second stint, and did brilliantly well to keep the tyres in check, because he struggled with that for the first 2 stints. And for all the world, in the long stints, I did think Kimi Antonelli would get up closer to him, but he said he just worn his front left out a little bit too much, and gave himself too much to do to pass Verstappen in that second stint. So a little bit of learning there from Kimi Antonelli on that front, but and it worked out horribly for Oscar Piastri. Meant Lando Norris got within half a second of Oscar Piastri, because when he came out of his pit, he was 7.5 seconds behind. So an awful lot to do, but the traffic helped him massively. And then we got lap 66, the big one, the 2 McLarens fighting up at the front, and Lando Norris went for a gap that wasn't there. Made the mistake of going for the inside. I mean, Oscar Piastri covered that inside line, so I'm not sure what Lando Norris was thinking to go and defend that part of it. And they touched It was the first time we've seen them race together, and yeah, Lando Norris makes another mistake, and it's cost him dearly in the championship. He drops back behind Oscar Piastri massively and gives Verstappen a sniff at him, doesn't it? Again, it really, I won't say a silly move, but really bad judgment on Lando Norris's part to make that happen, and it's cost him dearly. And then we got the safety car finish to the end, and a George Russell win. Max Verstappen second and Kimi Antonelli third place. Oscar Piastri came home in fourth. Then the two Ferraris of Leclerc fifth. Decent race from him. Lewis Hamilton in sixth, not so great, but he had damage. Fernando Alonso seventh. Nico Hülkenberg in eighth. Ocon in ninth with a brilliant race from him, and Carlos Sainz rounded up the top 10. Let's get to the 3 good and the 3 bad. The first of the 3 good, no surprise here, is going to be George Russell with a brilliant lights to flag victory. He controlled this one. It did look at one point that he might be in a little bit of trouble. Max Verstappen was closing quick, and then we see Max Verstappen try his drop off massively, and George Russell controlled it from there onwards. Even on the second stint, didn't really give Max any sniff, even when he got within that DRS zone or close to the DRS zone. But it looked like that was just more because of the traffic, but a brilliant controlled drive. It looked like they might struggle, especially with the higher temperature conditions that we've seen compared to qualifying, but they absolutely managed it well. They do like the cooler conditions. There's no hiding that. They went well here last year, and foolish me, despite mentioning that in my predictions, didn't go for Mercedes to do well at all, which is we are foolish. Mercedes with a brilliant job. George Russell with an absolutely phenomenal drive. The second of the 3 good, no surprises here, is his teammate Kimi Antonelli with an absolutely brilliant podium. The only disappointment here is that it did really look like that P2 was absolutely possible, because he was right up and alongside and looked like he had the car to pass Max Verstappen into that second place. Red Bull sort of outdid Mercedes potentially a little bit with their strategy, kept Verstappen with the undercut. Should Kimi or Mercedes called Kimi in early to get that undercut, especially on the second stint. Red Bull sort of just stole the gap on that one, but you did think though, with 32 laps to go, Kimi would, with that tyre, really be able to get up and pass Max Verstappen. It was so close that they both entered out of the pits when Kimi got out of his second stop, and it looked like he might nick that second place. But other than that, it was a really solid drive. He was so close to George Russell on pace throughout the race. And really kept Max Verstappen honest. It wasn't one of them where he's kind of looked into it. It was really well-deserved, brilliant racing, and a fantastic, P3 podium. This kid is, really stood out this season, and this is another one he can take in his cap in his first season. You can be mega proud with a podium on that one. And the third of the 3 good is going for, is a difficult one, this one, but I'm going to go for Ocon with the P9, because this car didn't look like it was absolutely anywhere at all. P14 they qualified, and it looked like for all the world that they're looking behind them. They have done for much of the other races this season, but Ocon made that really work this weekend. His first stint was absolutely brilliant, got himself up into P9, but you did think, is that because of the tyre offset of everybody else? But he did a fantastic job to hold that when it was all said and done after the second stops, and a fantastic drive. Great haul of points for him into P9. I'm going to give a shout out to Nico Hülkenberg though. He did finish in P8 from P11. Another one, it was so close between the two who gets the top 3 of the 3 good, but Nico just missing out this weekend, but he tops off and really another solid weekend after a brilliant weekend he had last time out. On to the 3 bad, and the first of them, and I'm going to go for, no surprise here, Lando Norris. He had a poor qualifying session which put him in the position and on the back foot coming into race day, and then he finally caught Oscar Piastri, and then the first time we've seen them two McLaren guys go wheel racing, it was Lando Norris who made that mistake, went into the back of Oscar Piastri. He put his hand up straight away, but there's nothing else he could have done. There was no gap that he was going for on the inside. Oscar was hovering over to that inside line very early doors. It wasn't even like there was a sniff of that opportunity there. And Norris should have tried around the outside. You know, he'd probably look like he had just a couple of lap better tyres, and he could potentially have made that move work for him there. Didn't happen in the end, and yeah, he takes himself out, and it's cost him massively in the championship, where, you know, you've got two cars, and Oscar isn't no slouch, not really showing these sort of small little mistakes that Lando Norris has sort of carried on from last year. We've sort of said that last year, didn't we? These mistakes that Norris needs to cut out if he's going to show that he's championship material. And now that he's in a fight with the championship with his teammate, it's his teammate, the younger boy, showing that more experience, you know, cutting out these little mistakes, and it's Norris that's taken him. It's still a long way to go in the championship, but from here onwards, Norris really needs to just cut this out for him. The second of the three bad, I'm going to go for Lance Stroll. Why did this boy turn up this weekend? He had a really bad qualifying. He had a really poor race. Didn't look like he was anywhere. He was a lap down in the end. Should have really just given this seat to somebody else to, you know, finally get a chance to, you know, see what they can do in that seat. It looked like he's still potentially struggling with his wrist. It's only been a few days since he had an operation again on his wrist, so probably still playing up in issues on that one. I was a little bit surprised actually that he did take up that seat this weekend. For all the world, I thought, you know, if he was really struggling last time out on operation, I don't think he's really going to do it for Canada. But it was his home race, and that was probably in the thinking on that one. But a really, really poor race from him. He was absolutely nowhere. And the third of the three bad, I'm going for Isaac Hadjar. He started in 12th, finished in 16th, 5 places from, well, 3 places down from where he got the grid place penalty anyway, which didn't really help him at all. But he was bound to happen, I suppose. He's been so good this season. Feels a little bit harsh putting him into the 3 bad, but it was a bad race. No two ways about it. Finished 4 places down from where he started in 16th place. It just didn't look like the car was there for him this weekend. It wasn't going to happen at some point because he was on such a great run. The only thing that he can do from here is just sort of forget about it, heads up, and move on to the next one. And we've got 2 weekends, two weeks now until we go to Austria. Can Mercedes pick up this run which we saw last year, didn't they? They then went on for winning 3 out of 4 races from Canada onwards last season, which was absolutely phenomenal from them. Obviously, they looked into the one in Austria because of the battle with Norris and Verstappen. I do expect McLaren to bounce back in Austria because they were brilliant there last year. I don't expect anything different this year. And McLaren or Mercedes were strong, weren't they, there last year? So it'll be interesting to see what happens on that. I cannot wait for the action to get going. Watch out for the driver ratings video coming probably middle of next week, and then we'll head into the Austria preview. I cannot wait for the action to get going. It was another brilliant race in Canada. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment as always, and well done to George Russell and Kimi Antonelli for a 1-3-4 Mercedes. A brilliant race from them. See you on the next one.